There I was at the age of 17 in a hospital bed with needles in my body because of the dehydration. They were trying to put that glucose and all of that back in. When a man brought a Bible to my bed, I had never opened a Bible in my life. I didn't own a Bible as far as I knew. There was certainly, I'd never opened one in my home or anywhere for that matter. I used to go to an Anglican church and just used to pray very hard that the service would come to an end soon so that I could go and play cricket. And in that John passage of chapter 14, which was read to me because the dehydration meant I couldn't use my arm. My mother read it to me. Verse 19, chapter 14. Jesus said, because I live, you also shall live. And I said, whoever you are, you claim to be the author of life. And I just don't know what living actually means. If you will give me the life that you want me to have, I will leave no stone unturned in my pursuit of truth to follow you. That was at age 17. I am 73 years old now. It was the greatest miracle that God brought in my life.
Wow. Obviously, the suicide numbers are off the chart. We're in a zone that we haven't been in possibly forever in this generation. It's not just young people, it's businessmen in our community. It's mothers, it's people of all ages and all walks of life. What is driving this culture to want to end it all?
You know, in Belgium, they don't even call it suicide anymore because they didn't want that black mark on the culture. They called it opting out of life. Opting out of life. Another one of those euphemisms that they think changes reality. It doesn't. Recently, a nutritionist in New York, you may have read that story, very successful, ended her life, and she said, my problem is that I have no difference of any feeling, either for something ecstatic or something monotonous or boring. If a thing is boring or a thing is just delightful, I have no desire to be in either of those. I go to parties and I come back, I'm numb. I have no response. And she apologized to her mother and took her life. Financially doing well, professionally doing well, but dead on the inside in terms of a response. Now, I have to say this, and I want you to hear me very carefully. It is possible in some instances where there are truly some biochemical issues at work. There may be some neurological issues at work. Right. There may be some hereditary issues at work. And you should always make sure that you get the best professional counsel as well. Because as much as these things may be spiritually connected, that's not all the connection sometimes. There's some very real issues as you and I know, some very well that have lost their own family members in the process, and they were suffering from deep depression and all of that. So let's not minimize it. It's not always only a loss of meaning and purpose. Sometimes there are genuinely some biological and biochemical factors involved. So it has to be dealt with in both ways. So I'll talk about it from the point of view of what happened to me. For me, it was a loss of purpose. I really didn't have any meaning in life. And you're right, that is at an epidemic level. You know, if you take a car and run into a crowd, you can't blame General Motors for it and say it was your car that I drove into the crowd. They would look at you and say, that's not why we made the car. And so oftentimes when we don't have a purpose in life and know our Creator, we end up wreaking havoc and creating evil. So I would just say, if any one of you is here tonight struggling with the issue of meaning, struggling with why you are here, the reality is you will never find meaning until you know the one who has made you. Meaning is not a singular strand of some momentary ecstasy. It's a composite and a convergence of the answers you have both propositionally and existentially of the very purpose of why God has made you, with that distinctive DNA and a distinctive purpose in mind.